Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad you could join us today for our webinar, Big Freight New Rules, How Tech is Transforming Big and Bulky Delivery. I'm Julia Grove, Senior Director of Marketing at OneRail. And over the next hour, we'll explore how technology is reshaping the way large items are delivered, from AI-driven dispatch to by appointment scheduling, and what it all means for your customers and your brand. So please type your questions into the Q&A section of the Zoom webinar, and our speakers will answer them towards the end. So let's dive in. I'm really super excited to welcome Ben Jackson, co-founder and CEO of Bungii, known as the DoorDash for big and bulky items. Ben has led Bungee's expansion nationwide and earned recognition from Forbes and Ernst & Young for his entrepreneurial success. We're also joined by Peter Sear, EVP of Logistics at OneRail. With experience ranging from global enterprises like Target to startups like Point Pickup, Peter oversees OneRail's expansive logistics partner network, forging partnerships with Fortune 50 retailers and local couriers alike while driving customer network optimization into the future. Welcome, guys.
Welcome, Julia. Ben, before we kick off, about that time for lunchtime, maybe it's just me getting hungry, but being you guys are based out of Kansas City, is it really true? Does Kansas have the best barbecue around?
Hey, you're gonna kick us off on that note with that level of disrespect questioning Kansas City barbecue?
Yeah, I like food in general, and I've had a little bit of Kansas City, and I have to say it's definitely up there and on one of the best.
I'll put it this way. Other cities, they might have an argument, but no one flies into Memphis or Texas like just for the barbecue. However, people make pilgrimages to Kansas City for the barbecue. So that's all I'm going to say. That's all I need to know. Case closed.
That's great. That's great. We'll kick it off here. I'm really excited to be partnered with you today on this, Ben, on this webinar on big and bulky freight and how technology is transforming this area of an industry, really. It's not new news that consumer behavior has drastically changed over the last 5 to 10 years. And due to that, we've seen a lot of changes in the final mile from investments in technology and network aggregation. We've seen that a lot on kind of the smaller package. But really, in the big and bulky space, it's been really kind of in the last five-ish, maybe a little bit more years that we've seen that technology really drive and expand. Well, we've seen this Uberization happen. Really, retailers and shippers face a number of challenges from where their warehouse is and being a warehouse-only distribution model to ship from store network or finding the right warehouses, fulfillment partners. If they don't have a big enough store footprint, how do they really change and alter their store layouts to be able to enable big and bulky deliveries seamlessly and closer to their consumers for a cost competitive price? A complete overhaul in inventory management also needs to be considered in this because you're fulfilling, more frequent from different locations, and it becomes very challenging. It's really easy to say this, but harder to do. Well, it's simple to outline the transformation of these networks cannot take place without the correct technology. Historical technology partners or platforms really didn't contemplate a shift from this warehouse to store-centric type of model. And therefore we come to where we are today. Consumers were driving, enabling this new world of big and bulky delivery as we see it today. I don't want to wait for a couch anymore in 4 weeks. I really want it, today, tomorrow, this week, sometime. Over the past decade, we've seen a rise in load boards, but those load boards are really kind of a hope strategy, which leads the consumer into taking a number of risks. Really, I want to dig in with you right away since we've seen an industry, this big and bulky industry, pretty historically speaking, a fragmented network, carrier network, minimal visibility. The tracking and speed has been pretty slow and not great. You guys have been one of the leaders in transforming this big and bulky final mile. Can you tell us a little bit how you've been one of the few to figure out how to scale this at a national level and how you're changing the big and bulky space from a visibility, flexibility, and speed standpoint?
Yeah, no, Pete, that's a great question, and thanks for kind of laying out the context, the landscape of the big and bulky space. So scaling nationally, Yeah, that's a tough challenge. And I'd say one of the key reasons why we've been able to do it successfully, without compromising quality, comes down to we're big and bulky obsessed, right? Like we're waking up thinking about big and bulky. We're spending our time throughout the day thinking about big and bulky. We go to bed thinking about big and bulky. And I lose street cred every time I say this. Whatever, I don't care. Like we're big and bulky nerds. And I don't want to get too like philosophical, meta here, but just bear with me. Like big and bulky, I believe, is really where the art and the science combine. And big and bulky and parcel, they're not the same. I mean, I would even argue that they're completely different businesses. And if a company tries to do well at both, good luck, right? Right. And so what do I mean by that? So parcel, it's a science, right? It's high volume, few variables. You kind of just drop it, you get to the next one. But I don't know, historic church bell, right? I mean, that's an art. It's fragile, it's unique. There needs a custom game plan in place ahead of time. Probably needs a structural engineer too. But the reason why so few can really execute big and bulky at scale is because it requires both sides, right? The logistical precision and also the flexibility to solve real world challenges, in each moment. We don't deliver parcel, we don't deliver fast food, we don't deliver groceries. I mean, we built our entire company around this very narrow, specific niche. And because of that, we have the best delivery pros, the best tech, the best response time, the best execution that absolutely delights the end customers, proven by our 87 Net Promoter Score. But the bigger story here isn't just Bungii. It's really about how we take that focus and plug it into OneRail, into your ecosystem. And when you combine that obsession of ours with the sophistication of your platform, it creates this full delivery suite that nobody else in the market can touch. And Pete, that's one of the reasons why this partnership has been so much fun. So I'll throw it back to you. So obviously tech is a huge piece, a huge component of this. And I've noticed really from the very beginning, it seems like OneRail has gotten that piece right. And that's really changed the way that retailers think about and manage delivery across the board. So, I mean, how do you see these type of tools, this type of technology reshaping the way the industry thinks about delivering the value they bring to the customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. Something just personally I've always enjoyed is just watching how technology shapes and evolves our own personal lives, but then also just being in this logistics arena for many, many years, it's just seeing how it's shaped and evolved the logistics world. And really for the better, taking out the old days of dispatching are long gone, and it's really encouraging to see the efficiencies that are really driving that. I think we as consumers a lot of times take many of these technologies luxuries, as I'll call them, what they enable for us and what they're able to do, and don't really realize what goes behind being able to enable that. The reality is, with today in today's world, anybody can build an app, anybody can build a platform, with a little bit of money, but very few have been able to successfully build that technology to solve the pain points occurring and being able to solve for those at scale, right? I mean, you might be able to solve one market with a very, simplicated app or platform, but being able to do that at scale is very difficult. And you mentioned load boards at one point. At one point, even as you knew it, or as early as 10 years ago, they were kind of a cutting edge technology at the point. These digital load boards was just kind of funny to think about now. But they really, at the end of the day, they didn't really solve the underlying problem, which was providing the customer with the right partner to service their order based on statistical data, identifying who should really take that order based on the requirements, right? It really kind of was a hope strategy. And I think we can all agree that hope isn't really all that great a strategy for being able to scale like we have together as partners. So for us from a OneRail standpoint, we've been leveraging AI decisions based on hundreds and thousands of deliveries that we do every single month. And it's not a hope strategy. It's really based on data and statistics to drive a consistent, reliable, and quality experience for that customer. As consumers over the last 10 to 20 years, we've become very, very demanding, right? I mean, I kind of look and say anybody that can develop something that is going to make somebody's life easier, faster, with less clicks and less thinking is going to be very, very successful. And in the logistics world and where we play in this big and bulky world, that's really become very prevalent over the last 5 years is like I said earlier, the couch. I don't want it in 3 weeks anymore. I want it today. I want it tomorrow. I want it this week. And being able to pick that right person, that right partner to do that is essential to keeping to customers and being able to really drive that value and experience that everybody really wants for their brand. um kind of turning that back is, as this big and bulky world continues to transform and move, I think it's really important to think about who the customer is. You touched a little bit about on that before, is that me as a consumer ordering my fast food is a vastly different type of customer many times when we're thinking of this big and bulky arena. It may be the same, it may be a DIYer looking for a weekend project, but a lot of times we're looking at, what pro customers are, and defining that. And I guess, can you talk to us a little bit about what types of customers you see in this big and bulky space? Once again, the DIY, the pro customer, a little bit about their demands and the transformation of this space, and how do we service them correctly?
Yeah, yeah. An interesting juxtaposition is really, the DIY customer versus the pro. And one of my favorite stats that blew my mind when I heard it was that at Home Depot, pros represent 5% of the customer base, people walk in and out of the doors every day, but they drive the majority of Home Depot revenue. And the extent to which pros are disproportionately fueling revenue is unreal. And I really say that pros probably represent one of the best examples of this huge consumer base that's been completely neglected. And to solve this, we really thought about the solution being flipping the script, and instead of asking ourselves, how do we optimize delivery, we ask, like, to whom are we optimizing this for, right? And as we serve pros across a variety of our clients, there's really, I'd say, three things that stand out, three big takeaways. So one is pros don't want convenience, they actually want control. And there's a big distinction there, right? I mean, like, convenience is tracking links, 4-hour delivery windows, those sort of things, they don't cut it for the pros. Pros want guarantees. What's the time you're going to be here? What's the place? How's the handoff going to work? And now when you be exact, right? And which makes sense because, if a pro has a contractor team that's waiting to install insulation, every hour that we're late, it's $500 that we're burning. And then on the other end, if we're early, this huge team installation is in the way. So, it's exact time, exact place, exact handoffs. Two, for pros, white glove, I'd say it's not a premium. Again, it's more about the performance. They want white glove because it makes the job site more efficient. Again, not because it's convenient. They'd rather have their tile guys, let's say, for example, focused on laying tile, not like figuring out how to pry open a crate, right? And that type of context switching, it wastes time. They don't want to do it. Focus on what you're good at. I'd also say, job sites are already cluttered with tools, with lumber, with who knows what. And the last thing they want is extra packaging laying around, extra trash. Again, it clogs up the job site, requires more cleanup at the end of the day. They just want you to take it away, right? I don't worry about it. I don't want to think about it. And then again, I mean, they want the materials stacked in the room of choice, which means the room where the, let's say tiles being laid, the packaging gone, and all this is done ideally before the trades man gets there, before they arrive. Again, because they don't want to be paying a skilled laborer, a lot of money to be hauling, boxes of tile up the stairs themselves. So it has been really interesting how the shift for pros between, I'll pick it up from Home Depot to I not only want it delivered, I want the white glove option, even if it's on my job site. I'd say so far maybe a theme of today has been customers placing a premium on getting delivery where they want, when they want, how they want. And I have noticed that OneRail has really leaned into that concept too. So I'd love to hear, like, how does that approach that you guys are taking elevate the consumer experience? How does it strengthen loyalty? What are you guys seeing in that realm?
Yeah, I think you hit on probably one of the biggest areas, that pro customer, and I'm not downplaying us DIYers that are trying to fix a fence or build a shed on a weekend, but pro customers, as you alluded to, are one of the biggest areas for any of our customers. Um, when you want the flexibility, speed, reliability to get something when you want it. When you think about it, it's really not all that different than you or I. It's just you have people, you're planning a business, and you want to be able to get it there with speed and accuracy because time is money to them, right? The more projects that they can do, the more that they can have their folks focus on what they need to do, the more successful they're going to be. They're going to be happier, their customers are going to be happier. And once again, that just flows down the funnel. So, for us at OneRail, we're very fortunate to partner with customers across a number of different verticals. While those verticals are vastly different, one of the things that doesn't really change all that much is the customer's desire for that optionality. Um, for us, we really take that pride in enabling a frictionless network to our customers so they can have that competitive advantage to be able to enable delivery when their customer needs their products. When a customer is able to offer that optionality, it's really building trust, which to me, trust is kind of the key word for a lot of things in life, but it's really building that trust and key, and I think that's a really key to its success of keeping that customer, because customer acquisition cost is massive, right? You spend so much money in marketing, trying to get that customer, trying to get them to buy, trying to keep them, especially when you're talking from the pro standpoint and the money that they're spending. You want to build that and really cement that layer of trust, which is key to success. So I mean, I kind of always try to say humanize this, and I say think about your own buying habits for over the past month, right? Me personally, I've ordered coffee that I really needed tomorrow because I wasn't paying attention and needed it. Anywhere to something that was new lawn furniture out the back that I was okay that was going to get here in a couple weeks, right? But it's being able to have that flexibility and being able to offer that to customers in today's demanding environment, is really what will be the deciding factor whether you're able to be successful as a retailer or supplier to your customers. Ben, you highlighted this previously, but customers don't really care kind of how if it's easy. White glove used to be this kind of big, audacious, so only certain people tackled it type of thing. Whereas today, people look at that as normal, right? If they want a TV hung or they want their furniture assembled, whatever, or you're just bumping docks and that's a little bit easier. Consumers don't really care anymore. They just want to be able to do what they want and offer it from their customers. And their customers, unfortunately, need to be able to offer that array of services to them to be successful and really capture that customer. So, um, at OneRail, we've really strived to just try to be able to always offer that wide array of services, and do it seamlessly and frictionlessly. And partnering with folks like yourself have allowed us to be able to offer that to customers at that very high level of service and quality that we all know and expect and want.
Great. That's great.
Well, thanks, guys. You guys have covered a lot, and much faster than I thought you were going to. We're going to open it up now for any questions. So as a reminder, there's a Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. So if anyone has any questions, you can type your questions in there, and we will ask our panelists. So I'm just going to give it just a couple of seconds to see if anyone has any questions. Okay, so Pete, we got one here that says that It says, I'm a retailer used to working with one delivery partner. What does invoicing look like when using multiple delivery partners? If I go that route, how do I keep track of it all?
Yeah, great question. One of the many values of partnering with OneRail is our really kind of our frictionless. We call it kind of a three-in-one solution. When you're partnering with us, we leverage our logistics partner network. We handle all the work, making your final mile experience really seamless. What I mean by that is you receive one invoice from us for all your deliveries. We handle all the freight audit, pay, claims, all the nuanced work that's not a whole lot of fun to deal with across, thousands of partners. And all of this is visible to you because really you want to own that data, that experience, that understanding through the OmniPoint platform that OneRail provides you, also with obviously custom data and analytics to be able to do that. So it's really a one-stop shop to be able to provide you that experience, regardless of where you are throughout the world.
He just to put you on the spot here. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a amazing service that I know a lot of retailers can struggle with. Have you seen that the number of heads that are required on either a supply chain team or a finance team are starting to decrease because of that service you guys provide?
That's exactly what it is, Ben, is you kind of think of, I'll call it the managed transportation services, right? I mean, that was kind of what it historically was called a little bit more in the older school world, if we want to say it that way. And that's exactly it. It's really being able to say instead of hiring, 15, 20, 30 people across multiple different departments, we're able to do that really as a one-stop shop, and it's been a game changer for a lot of our very large enterprise clients and even smaller clients to say, I don't have to hire this entire team.
Yep.
I have optionality. I have an opinion. I can say, you know what, we really like Ben Jackson. He's our favorite. We really want to partner and lean in with them at OneRail. We're saying, what is the best possible things that we can do for you, with you also being able to have that voice, because ultimately it's your customer and we want to do all that we can to be able to enable that, to make sure that your voice is getting across to your customer and you own that experience.
Yep.
So, it 100% has been a really big trend that we've been seeing and shift, for us being really, we think of ourselves as an extension of the organization to be able to provide them what they need to be successful.
That's great.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. So, Ben, we have a question here, asking, what is the most meaningful trend you've seen emerge in last mile delivery this year?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. If I can maybe zoom out a little bit, and I'd say 2020 was really, during COVID was really the year where we saw many retailers completely rethink their entire supply chain, right? I mean, virtually start from scratch. And I feel like, fast forward 5 years, we're finally getting to the point where I really see maybe over the past 12 months, it feels like the market that is starting to mature and starting to catch up. And what do I mean by that? So like while it used to be, it was all about speed, at any cost, whatever it is, just get there as fast as you can. Again, we're seeing kind of an evolution towards retailers waking up to the fact that precision is more important than speed specifically. So again, getting the right product to the right place, not the right address, the right place in the home or place on the job site at the right time, at the right condition, is worth way more than just shaving off an hour or two. And then in big and bulky, especially, we're finally starting to see the industry admit that it's a completely different game, right? Like the parcel rules don't work here. It needs its own playbook. And really, it's the shift that's been happening for our partnerships to adopt multiple solutions instead of just a one-off delivery solution. So, and again, that's why we're excited to partner with OneRail. That's why we're excited about working together. And again, that's where scale really happens as well.
Ben, that's a good segue to this next question you're saying about how it's not the same rules as parcel. We got a question about how do you see returns and reverse logistics evolving for large items?
Ben, you want to start and then or I can kick it off. You tell me.
Yeah, you get off beat.
Yeah. Um, returns is a challenging thing, right? I'm not saying anything that nobody doesn't know. They're costly, they're timely. In this big and bulky world, it still begs the question, what's the cost to serve and return that, right? And with a number of our retail partners that we look at is we're always evaluating and doing really analytics for them real time to be able to say, is the cost to serve to return that more value added than sending the customer potentially a new item that they had ordered? Because the cost, once again, the cost to still have somebody come pick that up, to return it, to repair it, to ship back potentially another time. There's a lot of cost prohibitive measures in doing that. Um, and so what we're doing is on our end is some of the things is saying, really, we want to help appease that customer because obviously well, it may have been no fault of, say, our partners of delivery. They've had a bad experience. So how do we correct that? How do we do it quickly? And how do we do it in a timely and cost-effective manner, to really help satisfy that customer? So we may be picking it up, we may be reversing and doing that. But then also it might be just the cost is better to be able to just bring them a new item, and deliver it that way. Ben, do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I'd say that there are really cool solutions that are starting to pop up in the market. One of them being companies who essentially will take a return item and then be a reseller for it, put it back on the market. And everybody thinks about, okay, what's the margin of this forward delivery? How much are we making on it? Is it profitable? The real margin killer is, the sofa or the treadmill that comes back. So, the old playbook of, we'll take care of it, we'll throw it in the dump or in the landfill. That's not working as well anymore. And again, it's been fascinating to watch these companies say okay, okay, carrier, okay, Bungii, okay, OneRail, can you pick up from this customer's home, take it to one of our distribution or fulfillment centers, and we're going to resell it, and then we'll write the retailer a check for that couch, for that treadmill, for that even sometimes TV, right? And again, it's just been interesting to watch the market try to solve this problem for itself. And I think the next 3-4 years are going to be wild in terms of the market figuring out the specific pain point.
Thanks. Ben, we got a question specifically for you. Is Bungee's business exclusively B2C? If not, what percentage of Bungee's business is B2B versus B2C?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we pride ourselves on being full omni-channel. So I know a lot of carriers in this space will say, listen, we're only residential delivery. We'll pick it from a dock, we'll take to a residence, and that's it. Or some carriers say we're only dock to dock. It's very specific, very niche. I've never really understood that. And we have the flexibility to pick up from, really, I'll say, to pick up and drop off from virtually anywhere. I mean, we're doing airports. Again, we're doing job sites, we're doing residential, we're doing warehouses, distribution centers. Right now, I'd say, it's kind of hard to draw the distinction between, what is a job site? Is that B2B or B2C? Let's say that's B2C. That's about 60% we're B2C, and about 40% and growing is this B2B.
Ben, I think I'd like to just draw and say that's one of the many reasons why we partner with you, right? Is that distinguishing final mile, right? I mean, some people say, well, it could be to that end node. Some people say, well, it has to be to a consumer, right?
Yeah,
so the lines get pretty blurred pretty quickly with, is this really middle mile? Is this really final mile? And I think there's a lot of ambiguity, and candidly, nobody really cares. But I think at the end of the day, that's one of the things that, I mean, we partner with you guys on, right? It's you guys sometimes go to a consumer's home, sometimes it's bumping a dock, sometimes it's doing an installation. And that's really what makes us successful, and kind of going to talk what we were talking about before, is that optionality to be able to have that flexibility, speed, and reliability with partners like yourself to be able to deliver that for customers and have that great experience.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. I mean, that's one of the main things that we built the company around, is that flexibility. So I'm glad someone else is noticing it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, so we got another one in. How do the two organizations coordinate day-to-day operations to ensure seamless execution?
I'll start, Pete, then you can
Yeah.
jump in. The secret really is a level of tech, a level of API integration. And I'd say coordinating this manually, the traditional way, which unfortunately a lot of times involve just picking up the phone and you're trying to call the carrier, trying to call the terminal, trying to call the retailer, and trying to call the end customer and coordinate it. I don't know how realistic that really is at all moving forward. Again, right now, both of our companies started not with trucks, but started with I'll say a table and a database. And because of that, we've been able to integrate, and really the system does I'll say all of the work, right? And that makes us much more. That just increases efficiency in terms of communicating the information, which again, Pete, like it's thousands of data points even for one delivery, right? And again, that's just obviously not scalable if there's a person behind the phone doing it. But when you have two sophisticated systems talking to each other, that becomes much more realistic. So, Pete, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think what I would add is hitting on a lot of what you talked about is technology first, right? So whether you call it 90, 95% of what we do is being able to enable that from a technology first standpoint. I think the other points are even though very much technology forward, you always still have to have human interactions, right? And what I mean by that, we have weekly conversations of the things that we're seeing in the data that technology just won't do for you, right? Even with some of these AI, yes, it's going to learn more and it's going to do some things. You still need humans that understand the business and are able to comprehend these things and come back and be able to work with each other to say, hey, I'm seeing this, whether it's they're getting there later, faster, whatever that needs to be. We need to tweak these things to make the customer experience better. That happens through human interaction, right? You can tweak some of those things from a technology standpoint, but really it's being able to do that from humans interacting and having that conversation. The other thing is really being just extremely diligent on SOPs up front. We really take our partners. Ben and I will shoot back and forth, and our teams will of saying, "Hey, we have this customer. This is what we're doing. We're onboarding them. What are all the gotchas, right?" And in between great partners like this, you really weed out those gotchas so that you can have that more technology forward execution and reliability, that the tech is doing 99% of that work. So you have that great interaction.
And Pete, I'd also add, I mean, I don't know even know if you remember this, but I still distinctly remember when I first met you. I think we were down in Orlando, and we were in the conference room, and you essentially said, "Listen, um, at the time, maybe I'm new here," and you're like,
Yeah.
"And I value true partnerships, and I'm going to be upfront. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be transparent, and we're going to share the data with you. We're going to help you out, and because of this, we'll be able to, deliver the best possible service." And that's a lot different with, I would say, a lot of times the type of other companies we work with can be maybe a little bit more stingy or less willing to really open up. And really the sacrifice there is the user experience. And so I really appreciate about you guys. I think one of the reasons we've been successful is because of your transparency, because of your openness. That's been great. So and then
Appreciate
to
that.
your point, there's obviously a person people component too. It's not all just technology. I think we have a shared Slack channel between our two
Yep.
teams. So things like that help too.
It is. It's one though. I mean, issues are going to arise, and at some point, some intervention does need to, right? Obviously, everybody's leveraging AI now to solve as many issues as you humanly can through technology. But at some point, people do need that human interaction, and it's setting up those communication channels that can be quick and swift to be able to make it solve those customer issues when they happen.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'll be the first to say it. Like AI is really cool. It's changing the industry,
Yeah.
changing the world, but there's still absolutely a human component that's needed, and it's not the solution for everything. And I'd say even the AI at this point, it seems to more augment the work of people rather than replace the work of people. And at least as far as I can tell, there's always going to be a need for a person behind the AI.
Great.
Okay. One more question. With peak season on the horizon, how do you help retailers ensure their delivery performance doesn't suffer?
Yeah, that's another great question. And because peak season is the ultimate stress test. I I'm probably aging myself. Pete, did you ever watch the show Bar Rescue?
Yes.
I just thought it was so funny. Whoever the main guy of that, he just gets super excited about. I think they call them stress tests, right? And they'll like
Yes.
take everybody in the community, like send them to the bar, and it's just wild. And I feel like that's a good metaphor for almost what let's say what retail looks like during peak season in Q4. And we found that in these type of moments, the networks, the delivery carriers, they rarely earn like a C plus. Either it's a pass or it's a fail, right? It's one or the other. And for us, the difference has really been investing in advanced batching. So like we're using spatial data, location analytics, balanced workloads, and really that allows the system to totally flex when we see volumes or spikes in volume. Last Q4, we actually saw, I feel like I'm patting myself on the back. This will be the last Bungii stat. We saw a 900% spike in demand, and it required focused farmer team, obviously, but the quality stayed consistent every step of the way. So, those are the type of things that retailers are looking for, that type of confidence they're looking for during these peak seasons, which totally makes sense because, when things are crazy, the last thing they want to focus on is delivery. Whereas they just want to hand it off and know it's taken care of. But how do you look at that? How do you look at that, Pete?
Yeah, and I'm gonna date myself back to my Target retail days of when I hear peak season, I think of Q4, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And for us, sometimes it feels a little bit like peak is all the time because we have, some major retailers at the spring. That not that they don't have a heavier Q4, but the spring is their peak, and then we have some that industrial customers, right? They're getting everything done during the summer, and then you have your kind of more traditional that are in the Q4. So, I think one of the things that you touched on, Ben, was batching, and I'll kind of dovetail that into really looking at it we look at it from an optimization standpoint, right? Going back to who's the right partners at the right time, the right capacity, down to the hour, down to the days, and really being able to flex that capacity and really being able to dial in. And I go back to picking the right partners to be able to do that and handle that capacity at those times. I think going back to dating back a handful of years ago, kind of like the load boards, there was a lot of hope and strategy and hopefully things would happen, right? Just throw it over the load board and it'll get covered. That doesn't work. And I mean, maybe it does, but probably not super successfully. And so really being able to learn and develop, we do a lot of work, specifically on my team, looking at and optimizing for customer performance based on different years. Holidays, right, are another big one. How do we flex? How do we increase capacity? How do we communicate once again with our partners to be able to say, hey, we're seeing influx capacity year over year, quarter over quarter. What does that look like? How do we plan to be successful? So I'd love to say that there's one silver gold bullet, however you want to say it, but the reality is it's a lot of data and analytics, looking at that, planning, getting the right partners in place to be successful.
yeah. And I'd say one more thing about that with the load boards. I think the um, a downside for the load boards is that they can quickly just become a race to the bottom. Anyone can jump on there and accept a delivery, and it does seem like many times quality can suffer. And that's something I appreciate about you guys is that um, you guys realize there's a little bit more nuance to choosing the right delivery carrier than just specifically what their price is.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll just touch on from a pricing standpoint, right? Everybody wants the cheapest, best quality they can ever get, right? But I think one of the things that we strive to do is really the cost to serve and understanding the market and being able to, I want to say really right size for our partners like yourself, but there is a real cost to serve, right? And it's not free. And I know there's this notion that delivery is free. But the reality is there is a cost to serve, and depending on what kind of service level and what kind of things you want to see, you do need to pay more or less for that quality or lack thereof. And something for us that we're always trying to do is be able to drive that quality and experience for ourselves and also for our partners as well.
Thanks, guys. I think one final question. With so much logistics technology on the market, and obviously we've talked about a lot of the tech aspects, and a lot of functional overlap, what tech advice do you have for logistics leaders?
Hmm. This is a good one. And I was at, I think it was Manifest or Future of Freight last year. And I was just shocked by all of the like TMS systems that like had boosts. Like there's no shortage of logistics tech right now. And again, Julia, to the question, a lot of it does overlap. And the way I look at it, my advice really would be like, don't get caught chasing shiny objects, right? The right question is not what can this tool that I'm building do? The right question is, how does this play well within the broader ecosystem? So I think that's key. I'd say two other North Stars that we follow is integration almost always beats individual features, right? So like a slightly less flashy tool that can plug in seamlessly to another platform will usually win out, over the cool demo, that creates more silos. And then I think last time it's just a general business concept, but like, start with the customer and then work backwards, right? Don't build what you want to build. Don't build what you think the market needs. Start with the customer, understand their needs, understand their issues, understand their wants. And, if the tech isn't directly improving their lives or their experience, probably not worth the time, probably not worth the money. So I'd say those are the three main things. Pete, how do you look at it?
Yeah, very similar to you. I think I'm probably a solutioning person at heart is really identifying what is the problem that you're trying to solve, right?
Sure.
And then once you identify what that problem is, a lot of times it's a very knee-jerk reaction because it's a pain point that you're experiencing today. But I think if you take a step back and look at the broader picture, like what are you trying to solve, right? And then being able to evaluate who can do that, who has those tools. To your point, Ben, there's a lot of technology in the logistics sector that may solve one small problem, but you can quickly get yourself into trouble being able to say, all right, now I have to connect 50 of these things to solve my one problem. And did it really actually solve that problem? I think the other big thing, and we didn't get a chance to touch on this too much, is from a customer standpoint, there's always this notion of we can build it better, we can do it, we can always build it better. And I guess I challenge or I encourage all to just really think about the time, energy, and money that Ben, both of our organizations have spent to really be able to provide these experiences. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a lot of time, effort, thought, and being able to leverage those technologies, those efficiencies to immediately be able to impact. You could be years away from being able to provide these things. And it's not that you can't do that. It's just a very challenging road and a very costly road. So best piece of advice is really just dig in with your partners. What are they doing? How are they doing things for other people? And ask them to show you. That's the best way you can see it. Or recommendations. One of the biggest things we love doing is, and we're very fortunate, we have some absolutely amazing partners, is the word of mouth, and that coming from somebody and what you've done for them is nothing speaks louder than that. So I think just digging in and really looking at what are you trying to solve and identifying that and looking at from a broader scale is key to the success.
Yeah, and I'd add to that. This space is so complex with so many variables and so many moving parts that rarely is a entrepreneur going to build a product that on its own stands and serves a customer well. And it will almost always, I don't know if I can think of a single example, but where there will be some sort of integration, some sort of plugin that is needed, whether it's again to a customer or to another delivery vendor, to that plugin is needed really to serve the customer well. It takes an effort, it takes a group, takes a team, takes a village. And again, so when you're building, I would just keep integration first and foremost in mind.
I think honesty is a big piece too, right?
Yep, yep,
There's no magical North Star that solves all your problems. If it
yep,
was, everybody would be using it. So I think just looking for those partners that are able to honestly say, "Hey, we do this, we don't do this, we can help you
absolutely.
expand." And sometimes growing and learning with a new area with somebody is not the worst thing in the world, because you can both learn and grow together. But just a partner that's open and honest on what they can really help and solve for you.
Thanks, guys. So we're nearing the end here, so I thought I'd open it up, starting with Ben. Any final thoughts or closing comments?
Yeah, that's a good question. The what immediately pops in my head here is the other day I was reading a staff report, and I highlighted a line from it, and it was some quote like, retailers are learning that their customers are more often influenced by delivery than any other type of interaction. And I kind of just sat there for a second. I was like, I mean, that's significant, but it does make sense, right? Because I mean, that's a lot of times if you're ordering online, that's the only like physical interaction, the physical connection that you're getting with that retailer. And if you take that and say, okay, like what's my thesis here? I would say it's something like the future of retail won't be one in stores or even online carts. I mean, it's going to be one at the doorstep, or to kind of use some of the context we shared today, at the doorstep or on the job site or in the home, right? And the ones who figured that out and who can do well in that aspect, I believe are the ones who are going to own the next decade of retail.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I think to add on to that, it's being able to really look at the logistics space isn't easy. It hasn't been, it wasn't 15, 20 years ago. It's still challenging with a lot of the same problems and some new problems today. And it's really looking to be able to say, how do you best service your customers? And there's a variety of ways to do that. That's fleets, that's using partners such as Ben and I to be able to help navigate those ebbs and flows, whether you want us for being able to really handle your overflow or handle all of your deliveries, right? There's a million different ways to do that, but it's really being able to once again take somebody that is looking at your business as an extension of their business and how can they solve and work through things together. I think Ben, you touched on it before, is the honesty and open conversations. I know I'm an old procurement guy too on things, and I know there's some times to be rigid, but I think the more that companies can really start to break down those procurement walls and be able to have open and honest conversations, the sooner you can go to solving for ultimately what you've hit on is the customer. What does the customer need and want, and how do you do that in a reasonable and economical way? But just to close everything out, just wanted to say thanks again, Ben, for partnering with us and sharing your wisdom and knowledge and insights into this quickly changing industry. You guys are a great partner. Really appreciate the time. Anybody looking to learn more about either of our organizations, please reach out to us via LinkedIn, email. We're here to help you and help you succeed in any way possible.
Thanks for joining, everyone.